With the rolling hills of Alabama behind them, the Conti Circus made a short trip over to Road Atlanta. Brian Strodbeck sat on pole in GS class with Dan Rash taking up second. Though it was a clean start for the Mustangs, Arthur Hermont played Russian roulette with turn 12 by sneaking inside Jason Breifogel to reclaim 13th. In ST class, Arthur Chan's lightning-fast lap started him in first with James Stevenson beside him. When the green flag waved, Dexter Castro and Chuck Johnson tangled in turn 1, leaving both to make recovery drives. On lap 2, Scott Bersher overdrove his number 21 machine into the corner and made friends with the tire barrier. Up at the front of the ST class, James Stevenson tossed patience out the window and had a fierce duel with Arthur Chan for the lead. On lap 6, Chris Moran fell afoul of turn 5's treacherous curbs and landed a tank slapper on the concrete walls. Traffic became a factor early on, but Rash and Strodbeck barreled through the backmarkers with a sense of urgency. The interference finally came to a tipping point when Strodbeck got loose at turn 7 and the white Frito-Main car slipped by. Lap 16 and Castro catches mixed class trouble by getting into the rear of Dustin Peterson in the now notorious turn 1. Meanwhile, Arthur Chan had been playing a game of patience behind James Stevenson's red MX-5 and held position behind him for many laps. Pit stops began in both classes around the 45-minute mark, and Chan was actually able to jump Stevenson by an entire 10 seconds to retake the lead. In GS class, Rash also used the pit stops to put some distance between himself and second-place Strodbeck. However, his advantage disappeared quickly after turn 3 caught him out and required him to slow down for a cut course penalty. Season 2 champion Steve Brown continued to fumble in Season 3. He entered the pits too quickly and smacked the wall, then added insult to injury by speeding in the pit lane. In ST, Stevenson showed his Aussie grit with a gutsy pass inside turn 1. Alex Palau showed his podium at Barber was no fluke and demoted Chan yet another position. Palau's timing proved impeccable. The first caution emerged the very next lap when championship leader Stefan Overgaard experienced a hardware failure and took a knockout blow to the face in the S's. It stole away a likely 4th place for the Dane. Bringing the clock down to the wire, the pace car ducked away in time for the white flag to fly. Brian Strodbeck made a last-second attempt at the lead into turn 1, but it was to no avail. Rash held on to take win number 2 this season. Brian came in second while Eric Smith took his first podium of the series in third. On the ST side, Alex Palau outdragged Stevenson down the back straight during the last lap dash. The final lap was the only one that the Brazilian led of the entire race. Road Atlanta was Palau's maiden win, while Stevenson and Chan rounded out the top 3. From there, the teams have trudged north. Today, Thunder Valley will weed out the meek, while the strong attempt to weather the storm at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Welcome to Round 5 of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, brought to you live on the Global Sim Racing channel. I'm Joe Peak. With me in the booth is the dependable Kevin Brown.
Hey Joe, excited to be here at the fantastic Mid-Ohio Circuit.
Also with me is the speedy Ayrton Ellis.
Hey Joe, very glad to be in this broadcast with you.
Me too. And then behind the scenes, turning all the knobs, is our director, Giancarlo Lenzi. Welcome, guys. As Kevin said, we're at Mid-Ohio today with the Conti Circus. This track is 2.25 miles long, so not terribly long. But it also has 13 turns, so it's kind of twisty. It's got a lot of blind corners, very hilly. We're going to have a 90-minute race today, as we usually do. So the endurance will come into play, and attrition will probably come into play from what we understand. However, what I really want to talk about is how the championship looks right now, and I think on the GS side we have Kevin to give us a little bit of information. Kevin?
Yeah, so the first point I want to mention is that this is before the first of 2 drop weeks will be applied, but our current GS leader is J.D. Baumgartner, who has 169 points on the strength of that Barber win, where German Afanador is in second, 8 behind J.D., and Russell Clayson is another 4 back. Our last round winner, Dan Rash, has a 0 to his name, but he is sitting in 4th place, 29 points back.
Yeah, and Dan's got 2 wins in his pocket so far. That just goes to show you that consistency is really, really important. So he's going to be looking to make some time up on that. Meanwhile, on the ST side, I think Ayrton's got a little bit of information on what the points are shaping up over there. Ayrton?
Yeah, at the moment we have Stefan Overgaard on top, and disregarding his crash at Road Atlanta, his consistency has been spot on. And very fast and up there in the top 5 for every race. James Stevenson is following him 2 points behind, and he does have one no-show. And once the drop week is implemented after this race, he should be back on top of those standings. And in third, we have Stefan Morian. Fourth, Arthur Chan. Richard Losber in fifth, who's actually tied in fifth with William Randleman, one of our rookies this season.
Yeah, Stefan hasn't had the best of luck, and yet he's still leading in points, so good on him. Well, in the meantime, since we mentioned that we're at Mid-Ohio and some of our viewers might not be familiar with this track, we have a lap guide around here done by our very talented Kevin Brown. Giancarlo, if you could spool that up for us. All right, we're getting ready to take a lap around Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course with our very own Kevin Brown in the GSRC Mustang. Coming on the front straightaway here. It's not too long a straightaway, but you can be vulnerable if you don't get a good exit here. Coming up to the first turn, you're just going to dab the brakes a little bit. It's a very fast left-hander, a little blind. Main thing is you want to get a very good exit, but not dip your wheels in the grass because that can send you into the tire barrier on the left. Because you're coming down this long straightaway. If you don't get fast enough out of there, you're going to be very vulnerable into the keyhole. Hard braking. This is a long, patience-trying turn, 180 degrees. There's a little bit of a crest early on. Get on the power as soon as you can, taking you onto the longest straightaway of the track. Now, Mid-Ohio is obviously very unique because the start-finish line for the first start is right here. It's that little blue booth on the left. Going across it now. Then you're going to come down to China Beach, hardest braking zone of the entire course. Right-hander downhill. You don't want to go off here. Many of the guys have lost their car in that sand pit. Then you got the entry to Madness, this left-hander which has a huge crest, very blind. Down into this right-hander, a lot of twisty, very slow turns in this portion of the course. Be careful on that curb on the left. You can see it can unsettle your car. You're going to turn right and have a bit of a curved braking zone. It's tricky. And another blind corner into Thunder Valley. You want to get on the power as soon as you can, get the car as straight as you can over there, or else you can lose it. Then a little bit of a bend to the right, get close to that barrier as you can, then chuck it over that curb on the left, and you come into the carousel, which is a double apexer as Kevin has taken it, though there are multiple lines through here. Then you come through this left-hander, don't get too much of that curb or you can unsettle the car again, and across the start-finish line. That was a great lap from Kevin. I know for a fact that that was only his second lap of that attempt that he did, so pretty impressive from him. Well, in the meantime, we've got Andre Trago with us in the booth here today. He's currently qualified 6th, so he's in the upper half of the Mustangs currently. Andre, today we've heard a couple drivers mention that they think attrition is going to come in play. Do you think that you're going to see a lot of guys off, or do you think people will be able to keep it clean?
I think we probably will see a few guys off. Everybody was talking earlier about how slick the track feels in these cars, so I think a lot of people are having some trouble getting it around the corners smoothly, so we'll see what happens, but yeah, I expect a few offs.
Do you think maybe that'll come into play a little bit later down the race? Because I know Eric Smith had mentioned that the tires tended to go off and the car would like to push into some of the corners.
Yeah, that's true. It really based on the setup too. Mine tend to get a little loose later on, so it really will be a factor, and it seems to be compounded just by the fact of how slick the track feels. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, and it's going to just keep being interesting, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's always interesting at Mid-Ohio, as we've seen in the past. Kevin, you're our Mustang man. Do you have any questions for Andre?
Yeah, Andre, congratulations on a pretty solid time. It looks like there's going to be a titanic battle. There's about 9, I think, of you, all within about a half second of each other. So how aggressive do you think it's going to be out there?
Well, I hope not too aggressive. I'm gonna sort of sit back and watch those guys fight it out. I was noticing that those times were really close, and I'm just hoping to stay out of the way. I've had pretty rough luck the last few races I've been in, so given the competitive nature of these guys, I think they're probably going to be going at it pretty hard, probably pretty early, and it should be fun to watch. But I'll be spectating from the track.
All right, best of luck today, Andre.
Thanks, guys.
Well, it's definitely going to be a little chaotic, I think, but both with traffic and just people trying to keep the car on the track. We also have Steve Brown, who's currently sitting fourth, who might be ready for an interview here. Let's drag him in. Steve, can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you, Joe.
Steve, you're sitting fourth in qualifying from what we're seeing. So we know one thing that we know from last week is that you had a little bit of a trouble on the pit entry, and we know that Mid-Ohio, it definitely has a tricky one with that little crest and that zigzag. Think you can stay out of trouble there this week?
Yeah, I made sure to practice that a couple of times this week, so I think we're good there. Road Atlanta, obviously, yes, I had some trouble. And we all know how I feel about that racetrack.
Yeah. So, right now, let's see, where are you sitting in the championship? I don't have the points up in front of me. We know you are last season's champion. Do you think you can be able to bounce back? Because you've been having a bit of a rough time this season, and fourth place is nothing to scoff at in terms of speed. So do you think you can compete with guys like Dan and Brian?
I don't think I quite had the pace for Dan and Brian and Trace when he's here. Even Eric, he's pretty quick. And the beginning of the season has been pretty tough, missing Daytona, and then a couple of troubles I had in some other races. But the last half of the season here, I like just about every racetrack that's left and have had success at all of them. So hopefully we can turn things around here.
Yeah, we'd like to see you be able to bounce back and really get in the fight there. We know that cautions have tended to come into play here at Mid-Ohio, sometimes overly so. Do you think we'll see that today, and do you think that's going to affect how your strategy plays out?
I'm sure we'll see a few cautions here and there. As far as strategy goes, I pretty much just, as soon as I get to my window to make it to the end, that's when I dive in. Fuel weight doesn't really matter in the Mustang as much as it does other cars, so just pretty much duck in as soon as we know we can make it.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of early pit stops, especially in these cars. Kevin, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Steve, great to see you back towards the front again. It's been a rough few rounds for you, so we're rooting for you. But you've got a bunch of drivers who are very close to your qualifying time. So what's your initial thought? You think you're going to go more defensive, or are you going to try and be aggressive and hope you might catch up to the three guys in front of you?
Well, after I ran that last lap and got up to fourth, I went and looked at the charts and realized I probably should have just stayed in fifth and been on the inside for the first turn, but having Russell on the inside of the lane behind me is a little worrying because he can be aggressive sometimes, so we'll see how that goes.
All right, well, best of luck to you today.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully I'll be talking to you later.
Absolutely. We would like to see him back on the podium. Well, we've got just a little bit of time left, like less than a minute until qualifying is over for ST, but since those guys tend to change that up on us at the last second, why don't we head down through the order on the GS side? Kevin, would you like to start us off on the first six?
Yeah, we have Dan Rash on the pole once again with a 1 minute 35.261. About a third of a second behind him is Brian Strodbeck. Then Eric Smith is the first car on the second row, and next to him will be Steve Brown on the outside, like he said. In the third row will be Russell Clayson and his teammate, Andre Trago.
Then in seventh place we have J.D. Baumgartner, who is one of the race winners from this season. Eighth place is Nicholas Bailey. Then in ninth it's Alexis Molina. And 10th, we have Alina Gomez, who has been deemed our Danica. We'll have to see how she lives up to that. Then 11th is German Afanador, who's usually farther up than this. This is unusual to see him so far back. And 12th is Arthur Hermont. And then finishing up GS class, we have 13th of Jonathan Auger and 14th of Phil Schroeder. Looks like everybody's kind of finishing up their laps on the ST side. Ayrton, would you like to kick us off on how things look in ST class and qualifying?
There's still about a minute left for people to finish their lap, but at the moment we have Carl Williamson on the pole at a 1:38.9 lap time, very fast. In second is James Stevenson. In third place is Alex Palau. Then we have Antti Tuominen, Arthur Chan, Stefan Overgaard, Joshua Lewitz, Patrick Gallagher, Hin Ho Tao, and then we have Matthew Reinhold, Stefan Morian, Dexter Castro, Richard Losper, Chris Moran, Elliot Huffman, Ed Voras, William Randleman, Stephen Asbury, Chuck Johnson, Michael Hatton, Tom Eckline, David Wammond, Christopher Thompson, Tim Brokaw, and then to finish up the field of 40 drivers is Hiro Kanaya.
Extremely full field today, especially in the ST side. There are a lot of MX-5s out there, but 40 cars total. That's really impressive. That's a good showing for this track. As they're getting lined up on the grid and get ready to take off, let's talk about a few of the points of note. One of the things that, Kevin, you pointed out, that Madness and Thunder Valley are going to be very difficult with interclass passing.
This is going to be a real tricky section for the interplay here. The GS Mustangs will be carrying a lot more speed than the MX-5s approaching the hard braking zone into Madness. But the both classes run about exactly the same time through Madness, and then the Mustangs run a very much faster pace out of Madness through Thunder Valley. So the GS class cars are going to want to be in front of the MX-5s through Madness, but the MX-5s aren't going to want to give that up. So how the drivers play with each other through this section and give each other space is probably going to determine a lot of positions in this field.
Yeah, and patience is something that we always talk about in this series, and it's going to really come into play today, I think. Another thing, we already mentioned the tire wear in the Mustangs. Let's touch on the Marshall errors of last week. I don't think we're going to have them again this week, but Ayrton, we saw some interesting stuff happen at the end of last race.
Yeah, definitely. There was the final caution at Road Atlanta, and the Marshalls, as we know, that the MX-5s get their lap back if they're lapped down. So while the MX-5s were being, the ST class were getting their wave rounds, the Marshalls very easily, with the time and scoring mistakenly, got the order incorrect, which switched the positions of a lot of drivers and made some drivers gain positions and lose positions that they did not necessarily should have. So that really mixed up the finishing order, and the admin, Wes Eric, decided to make the final finishing positions the official positions and not try to change any finishing position.
It's frustrating for some, but there reaches a point where you have to say, we made a mistake, and you win some, you lose some. So I kind of don't blame him on that. I hate to see standings changed after a race is over. One thing worth noting is that Carl Williamson is not starting today. In fact, he was on pole, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
I believe he missed his grid spot. He missed gridding, so he'll be starting from pit lanes.
Oh man, he did that last week, so he's got to do it all over again. Let's hope he actually finishes this week. He was having a rough time 2 weeks ago at Road Atlanta. Well, Kevin, let's go through real quick. Who are some of the people in the GS class? Who are some of the major players that we really need to watch out for?
Well, almost everybody in the field this week. We know that Dan Rash and Brian Strodbeck are at their usual fast pace. Eric Smith once again threw down a qualifying lap that's very fast, but we're not sure if his race pace can go. And then there's an enormous mid-pack field of a bunch of racers who are very, very, very fast. And if they get some luck their way, any one of them could take the win. We're looking at guys like Steve Brown, Russell Clayson, Andre Trago, J.D. Baumgartner, Alexis Molina, German Afanador. Any one of these drivers very easily could get a win from deep in the field.
Yeah, and a win is a coveted thing in this series. Not a lot of people have snagged them, especially on the Mustang side, because it's so competitive. Real quick before they get around to the line, and we're going to touch on that real quick. But on the ST side, Ayrton, who are some of the major players that our viewers should look out for?
Well, with Carl starting from pits, we have a lot of competition. James, who's now starting in first, through 7th place, are all within less than half a second. So these guys are all very close in time. And I think we have James and Alex Blau both starting next to each other. And those are the two drivers fighting for the finish in the last race. So I think this is going to be a good battle.
I do too. We're getting close to the line. Now, you may have noticed that they passed up the start-finish line at this course, and we mentioned it in the track guide. This track is very unique in that the cars start on the back straightaway because it's much more conducive to a safe start. You can see them lining up now as they head towards the keyhole. That's the Mustangs that are getting side by side. ST will be joining them. So it's just the front straight just isn't long enough, and it has that very twisty section with a huge field. They really need this. So the marshal is going to call them off. We're going to watch and see if they're going to get the green flag, and they should. They're nice and lined up. Patiently waiting for that call to come. Dan Rash and Brian Strodbeck right next to one another. Listening for the marshal to come in with the call. And there it is. Green flag is away as they take off at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Dan Rash holds the inside. They're still 2x2. Brian is looking to see if he can do something. They're both braking still side by side as they head into madness, but now Brian gives it up. And unfortunately, Eric Smith is moving up into third, it looks like. He's doing a good job of taking over Brian's spot. What's it look like on ST side there, Ayrton?
They've just been given the green flag, and it looks like Anti-Tuneman is already jumping to the outside of James Stevenson. Alex Blau got a terrible start, and at the moment they're 3 wide going into madness.
Oh, and it looks like we've got some trouble. That's Arthur Chan, who just got bumped off the course. He is the only car currently. He's in China Beach. Oh, God, that guy can't catch a break, no matter how many times we say it. But Arthur is still leading away. Or, I'm sorry, James Stevenson is leading away with Anti-Tumenin very close behind him as they go through madness.
It looks like Arthur just had a little bit of contact with Alex Blau while trying to get around on the outside. Those guys were 3 wide, so Alex was right in the middle, didn't have much to do at that point.
It doesn't look like he has much damage, so he's got a lot of work to do. We're going to hop back up to GS class. Dan Rash is still leading ahead of Brian Strodbeck with Eric Smith very closely behind. They're heading through the keyhole right now. And fourth, we've got Steve Brown just holding on to them. But they're all kind of 1 by 1 currently, Kevin.
There was some side-by-side action through the S's while on the start, but they've all seemed to have fallen in line now, and there's been officially no overtaking on this first lap. So I think we're seeing some patience right now, which is, I think, always a good thing.
Yeah, I think knowing how tricky these cars are going to be around the course of the lap, these guys are playing a waiting game. I noticed that Arthur Hermont's quite a ways back, though. I'm not sure if something happened to him at some point. Maybe he just doesn't have the pace. But let's take a peek back at ST class, since there doesn't seem to be much going on in GS, seeing if I can dig up a battle with these guys. Right now I'm looking at Joshua Leutz and Patrick Gallagher. Those two guys are very close together.
Yeah, this is Patrick's first race in this series, so he's already up to 5th place, which is an awesome start to his race.
He's currently shortly behind Stefan Oregard. In fact, he's closing in a little bit under braking as they head over that crest that takes them into madness. I love that corner. It's so frustrating, but at the same time so enjoyable when you get it right. They weave through these series of corners, and Patrick is doing a very good job, though it's early days. And he's actually, it looks like he's continuing to gain on Stefan, so maybe he's got a little bit of pace in these early laps, even though we're on lap 2.
Yeah, it looks like Alex Blau is getting back on the bumper of Anti. I think Alex has a little bit more speed than Tumenin at the moment, but these guys are still very close together.
Yeah, if you didn't catch the race last week, Alex had snuck a win in, his maiden win here in this series, so he's proved he's got the speed. He's always been kind of up there, but hasn't really been able to take advantage of things. And we've got a yellow out. Have you guys seen anything going on as far as what caused that?
Not me. It looks like the GS class was fairly clear.
Final corner, Dexter Castro and Stefan Morian had big contact, and Dexter Castro got spun around a huge traffic jam in those final 2 corners.
Let's see if we can pull a replay up of that. Yeah, you're seeing him come around the carousel now, and just gets into Stefan Morian. Unfortunate with Stefan being so far up in the championship, that's not going to make him happy. And cars are just scattering to get around that mess. That gets really clogged up in there. I've seen that happen before, and been the victim of it as well. So they're going to come and cycle around. It looks like. Let's see. What do you say, guys? Should we go to a commercial break, or should we stick with this, see if we can get an interview?
Either or.
I was gonna say, someone chime in here. All by myself there for a second. Maybe we could. Let's see, who's sitting and waiting there. Is Dexter Castro in there? Dexter's in there. Let's see if maybe he'd be willing to talk for a second since they're on yellow. Dexter, do you have a second to talk?
Barely.
All right. If it's too busy for you to talk, just let us know. We saw you got into a little bit of trouble there. What happened?
It was just an unfortunate situation. Hang in front of me checked up slightly, and whoever was behind me just got into me.
It's we've seen you get into a few people throughout the season. Hopefully, you can keep it clean for the rest of the race.
Well, I'm just hoping it's gonna be salvageable just to be able to drive the thing right now.
Yeah, it looks like you're having a bit of trouble, so we'll let you go. Alrighty, well, poor Dexter's just not been having a good time this season. I believe he's got one podium to his name so far this year, but not much else. Just keeps seeming to find contact along the way. He's got to get his act together on that. We're gonna hop to break as they get this sorted out. I don't believe it'll take very long, but you guys enjoy the music as we let the yellow laps tick by. Welcome back. We've got yellow flags early on in this race. This is not unusual mid-Ohio. And Dan Rash is currently leading them around, leading the GS class with Brian Stradbeck behind him in second and Eric Smith in third. Interesting turn of events. Matthew Reinhold, Stefan Morian, Joshua Lloyds, and Dexter Castro have all pitted. Now, Stefan and Dexter both had damage that we saw, but Matthew and Joshua, as far as we know, didn't really get into trouble. So we'll have to keep an eye on and see what in the world is going on with their strategy, Ayrton.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys are just trying to, it might be a good idea just to sit in the back and coast for a little bit, because this is a long race and there's bound to be some more contact and traffic jams like the one that we just witnessed. So I think some guys are thinking about taking it easy for a little bit of the race.
It'll be an interesting strategy, to say the least. I'm curious if there's something going on with fuel. Well, in the meantime, the pace car is peeled off and the green flag is coming out as Dan Rash leads them off. Brian Strawbeck is right all over his bumper. Is he going to try and do something into turn one? He's taken a bit of a look. I don't think he's going to have enough braking to make it happen. No, he stays in line. Everyone's very, very close up in the top 6, it looks like right now. And Dan Rash, I think, put 2 wheels off into the dirt just a little bit, but it didn't hurt him. Meantime, Brian Strawbeck is going a little bit defensive, Kevin.
Yeah, I think was looking to be a little aggressive maybe on the overtaking maneuver, since Rash actually went 4 off and was a little slow out of the exit. And we can see Strawbeck did get a good run out of the keyhole. I'm wondering if he's looking to make a move early.
Yeah, I'm watching him, see if Dan will stay on the defensive line. He's staying right in the middle, giving himself options, so Brian takes to the outside. Doesn't have enough under braking to get him into China Beach, so they're going to come into this left-hander over the crest, and there's nothing doing there. So Brian's just going to have to slot back in line. It's still only lap 6 currently, so I think he's got to play a little bit of a waiting game on this at this point and see if he's going to get a better opportunity instead of making a dive.
It's a difficult place to pass there into China Beach on the outside, and I think he was just showing his nose, and if he had a chance to make it happen. But good to see a little bit of patience going on as we're seeing the GS field running nice and clean right now.
Yeah, I think these guys have started to learn you got to play it smart, and especially with how tricky and how much attrition comes into play here, that they're just backing off. So let's take a look at the ST class in the meantime, since we haven't seen them since the restart. James Stevenson is leading them off. Antti Tuominen still holds on to that second place over Alex Balau. He stole that very early. So Alex also being patient. I don't know if he hasn't had an opportunity or if Antti's got the legs on him. I know Antti seems to have been, either he's got it or he doesn't as far as tracks go, and here he has definitely got it. He's been up in the times, and he's making it known that he intends to do something.
And these guys are very close at the moment. Still very single file and not much side-by-side racing yet in the ST class in this race.
Yeah, everyone's just being real laid back, kind of after you. Although Alex is really closed up on Antti there on the keyhole. I noticed that it looked like Antti got into it just a little too hard. He went very wide, braked way late, and closed up on Stevenson. So that might have compromised his exit. Alex closes up down the back straight and under braking, but there's nothing that he can really do. So no attempt there. Oh, he gets very close under braking into that left-hander. In fact, now he's got Stefan Overgaard taking a look on the outside, but this is a very twisty section, so I don't think he's going to have an opportunity to pass Ayrton.
Yeah, and Patrick Gallagher is right behind those guys, and he's really up there in pace. He didn't have much of showing in practice, only about 10th place, and his qualifying was only an 8th. But he's keeping up with these guys, and I think he may be a contender for the lead as well later on.
And we've got a little bit of battle going on right now. Russell Clayson made a move on Steve Brown on the outside into Thunder Valley and got shoved wide into turn 8, and then almost lost a position to Andre Trego. So that's put a big gap between Eric Smith and Steve Brown, and Russell Clayson is now scrabbling to kind of catch up to Steve Brown again.
You know, I think that brings up a good point that you can't just make a move wherever and whenever. You've got to really make it calculated because of what, if it goes wrong, you have to think about that. Am I going to be vulnerable if I mess this up? And Russell knows that, but I think he's relearning that lesson just now. Steve's doing pretty good. He's kind of running by himself, and I have to imagine that's what he's going to want this race, Kevin.
Yeah, I think so. He's had such hard luck the last couple of races that it's good for him to be at a track that he's pretty good at, and I think he just wants to be able to kind of get his head down and get up on the wheel and put a bunch of consistent laps in and really give this a go for his money here.
Yeah, and with the fuel on, I'm looking at last lap was 1:37.3, although I'm not sure if that was the lap coming back from green, so that could possibly explain it. But a lot of these guys were running 1:35s, 1:36s, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and see if they're running slower times to conserve tires or what's going to happen there.
And you bring up a good point. The Mustangs do use up their tires pretty well at this track, and it's really dependent on driving style and setup. And some drivers will probably suffer with understeer as the race goes on, and other drivers will suffer with oversteer as the race goes on. And that's going to affect what they're going to be able to do in traffic.
Well, looking a little bit back, and Andre Trago is closing up on Russell once again. Now, Andre is an interesting story because I remember him having battles here with Trace McRae, and now Trace is an incredibly fast driver. He is one of the best in the world in the Mustang. And him being as far down as he is kind of surprises me. I'm not sure if it's the new tire model that's caught him out, but he's starting to catch up with Russell, which is another top contender. And I'm really hoping to see him get his hat back in the game here.
Yes, he's definitely kind of, we haven't seen him where we expect to see him, but we do know that he is good at this track. So as so many of these GS drivers are, this is a great track for the Mustang. It's a lot of fun to drive, but it's real tricky when you're by yourself, let alone if you're next to an MX-5.
Yeah, and you know, that'll be a fun few laps when those guys finally catch them. But speaking of the MX-5s, Ayrton, have you seen any battles going on back there?
Well, at the moment, there's a train from 1st to 6th place, and at the end of that train is Carl Williamson, who has come back from the very back of the pack, starting in pit road, all the way up to 6th place, and right at the end of this pack. And these guys are very close. These almost touching bumpers. Alex Blau is rubbing all over Antti Tuneman at the moment. Actually, Carl Williamson makes a mistake going into Thunder Valley and gets passed by Chris Moran.
Chris Moran was the winner of Race 1 at Daytona, so he's looking to try and get back to that form, I think, as they're going side by side through the left-hander that leads into the carousel. Chris is really trying to hold on to it. He's going to have the inside, but he doesn't break enough. Maybe he's trying to play it safe once again, so Carl's going to take that position back, and it looks like he's going to do so safely. Well, I find it interesting that Carl has moved up that much. He didn't quite have that much success 2 weeks ago at Road Atlanta, so he's really making good of it. I think if he can not make any more mistakes like that, he's going to be in contention for the lead. Oh, and looking upwards, Alex Blau is starting to threaten Antti Tuominen. He wants that second place back. He was looking on the inside. Meanwhile, behind him, we've got two more cars going side by side. That's Patrick Gallagher and Stefan Overgaard. Patrick was going to want that position, but doesn't look like he had enough as he slots back behind Stefan.
This course is very difficult to pass in the MX-5 because of the elevation changes. Running too wide is very difficult and very easy to go off track. So I think these guys should really be careful not to mess up, because if you just miss your braking zone a tiny bit, you lose a ton of time.
Yeah, and those tire barriers are very close, so if two cars come together with a little bit of contact, it's not very far to slide yourself into the Armco barrier. So these guys are starting to get a little bit feisty, which is good to see. I'd hate to see us have to call a processional today. Alex Blau has still been making a few looks at Antti up there. I think he's anxious to not lose sight of James, although it seems like they're all kind of running similar pace. As you mentioned, they've got a train, so he hasn't completely lost touch, which surprises me because James Stevenson's style is usually to just kind of run away from everybody.
Well, checking in at the front of the GS field, Dan Rash and Brian Strodbeck are separated by about 2/3 of a second, but they've put about another 3 seconds on Eric Smith, who is once again running by himself in third place, before we get to Steve Brown, who's another couple seconds down the road. And then almost all the rest of the GS field is separated by a second to the car in front and behind him.
Yeah, Eric is starting to remind me a bit of Jenson Button in the way that he complains about the tires. Unless his setup is just so, he seems to never quite be happy. And I don't say that in insult, but more that just he's very particular. He knows the car, he knows how it's supposed to feel, and he wants to get it as hooked up as possible. He's very, very technical in that regard. But I'm pretty proud of him to see, because he's a newcomer. This is his rookie season in CESCS. He's not used to endurance racing. And so far, I mean, he took his first podium last week or 2 weeks ago at Road Atlanta. Right now, he's sitting very pretty in third with nobody around him, and he doesn't seem to be pushing too hard. So I think he's starting to learn how to run this car over long distances.
Yes, the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series is much different than the Mustang Challenge that Eric Smith's a little more familiar with. The races are almost 3 times as long here, so he's definitely, I think, learning how to set up a car for compromise and drive with that compromise, because a fast car at the start of your stint just isn't going to help you through the rest of the race. And learning how to drive with the slower ST class is definitely a new experience for a lot of drivers. But Eric Smith, is, as we're seeing, has done a pretty good job for him. But then again, maybe it's his bright orange paint with the caution on the hood.
Yeah, and I think he's expressed that he's might be ready to change that, since he's feeling a little more proud of the way he's staying out of trouble. Let's pop back to ST, though, because those top 3 are still very tight together. In fact, top 5. Oh, and Antti Tuonen is taking a look at the lead, though, because James Stevenson went very wide at the keyhole. Antti had to get out of it. That backs him into Alex Palau, who goes off track, and it's all just having a chain effect there on those guys, because now Palau is compromised, and Stefan Oergaard is taking a look at that podium spot. They're heading down the back straight. Stefan's on the outside of Alex. He's going to have to outbrake him. If he can hold on to it, he's going to have a chance on the inside of the next left-hander. He's kind of got that outside position locked down. He's going to have the inside here. Is he going to be able to hold on to it? This crest is very hard to go side by side. Alex Palau goes wide to give him the space, but now he's going to have the inside. They're still side by side. Alex is still holding on to it, and now he takes it back. That's going to put Stefan under challenge by Carl Williamson. Carl Williamson takes the spot. Stefan still slips down, and Patrick Gallagher takes the spot. So that move went all wrong for Stefan.
Carl Williamson is now up to 4th position, right behind Alex Palau. He's had a fantastic run. Antti Tuonen is still has now gotten a little closer to the bumper on James Stevenson.
Oh, and Patrick Gallagher went off there, so all the excitement must have got to him, but he gets it back on. Carl Williamson is currently up to, what position is he
4th.
Made his way into? 4th place, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
4th place, really good stuff from Carl, impressive. I really do think he has an opportunity to maybe run away with the win of this one, which is going to be extremely impressive. In the meantime, we've got a real battle going on in GS class, Kevin.
Yeah, at the back of the field, Arthur Hermont just made a nice move on Phil Schroeder on the inside of the keyhole, and I think Arthur Hermont's going to try and make a move on the inside. Yes, he is going to make a move. Lena Gomez sitting in the back, and Arthur Hermont's getting real loose on the inside, but they all managed to get through one by one. Well done.
I think that was Arthur defending, actually, but yeah, Elena's doing a very good job there. Or I'm sorry, Arthur's doing a good job. Or no, that was Phil Schroeder and Arthur that were doing battle, I believe.
Yeah, we have Arthur Hermont in the all-red car, and Phil Schroeder's in the black and dark pink car, and behind him is Elena Gomez in the black and light pink car with the stripes.
You guys need to get some different paint schemes going on. You're making us confused. But good driving from these guys. It just goes to show that even if you're in the back, clean driving is still just as important. They're still all very nose to tail. In fact, Phil gets a little backed up there, and now Alina is all over his bumper. Maybe she's going to have an opportunity into one, Kevin.
Yeah, I think she's looking for it. She was a little faster than these guys earlier on and had some trouble and fell behind them and had to catch up to them. So I think she was hoping that they probably wouldn't be in a side-by-side battle sewing her up. But let's see what she can do here to get around these guys.
She took a little bit of a look through turn one, but that's very difficult to make a pass through there with it being so fast and so little braking. She's lost a little bit of time, but in fact, both of them have lost time to Arthur Hermont. They're going to look to close up through the keyhole. They don't quite. Arthur might be running away with it, but I think you're right. I think Alina's got a little bit more pace than Phil here, and Schroeder is probably going to be under threat as they come down towards China Beach.
Yeah, Elena looks to be a little too far back this time to be able to make a move, so better run out of the keyhole, and she might have been able to do it this time.
Meanwhile, we've got a side-by-side battle for second place in ST class. Alex Lau got a better run out of the keyhole and is now side-by-side with Antti Tuonen for second.
And he's got the inside, which is probably where he's going to want to be. They're getting very close as they close in under braking. Blau slightly outbrakes him, and that gives Carl Williamson an opportunity. He's on the outside of this next corner for Antti. Can he hold on to it? They're still side by side. Carl is going to have the inside of this next corner, and he's going to have it clean. So Antti moves down 2 positions. That's not what he wanted.
No, now he has Patrick Gallagher right on his tail. These guys are just getting closer and closer each time they switch it up, while James Stevenson is just having like nice little free space while these guys mix it up.
Yeah, he's going to get some breathing room. I find it interesting that we've seen a few MX-5s running side by side. Oh, and Antti Tuominen goes off. He is off into the dirt, but he manages to hold on to it. That is a very, very fast left flick. That's ruined many people's cars over the years, but that's going to move him down quite a few positions. In fact, I believe he's all the way back to, what is 7th place now?
No, 6th.
6th place. So a little mistake can very much cost you, and I'm seeing a Mustang coming out of the pits there as Antti goes by. Who is that? That is JD Baumgartner. Did JD get into some trouble, Kevin?
Not that I saw. I saw a nice little battle between Russell Clayson and Andre Trago as Russell went off in the entrance of Thunder Valley. But I think a bigger story brewing up here is Dan Rash and Brian Strodbeck are really putting a gap on the field. Eric Smith is now sitting almost 6.5 seconds off the lead, and Steve Brown is trying to reel him in quickly.
We don't have to hop back to JD, but I think it's worth pointing out that we're almost to the 1/3 mark, which is about the time the pit stop window can open. So I think JD might be banking on some yellow flags there. Well, Dan definitely has some breathing room between him and Brian. These guys are absolutely picking up where they left off from 2 weeks ago. Brian put a little bit of a wheel into the dirt there, but he keeps it safe. He can't do that too many times because your car can spin out, and it's a very short trip to the tire barrier. So these guys, we saw them at Daytona duking it out. Then we saw them at Road Atlanta pick things up and really have a fierce battle. And now they're doing it all over again. I'm starting to think this is our Mika Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher running away from everybody, guys.
Yeah, Dan and Brian are definitely the class of the field right now. They really seem to be stepping it up against each other and just kind of keep moving forward a little bit faster each week, and that's making it real difficult for the rest of the GS field.
Yeah, last time by the line, Eric Smith was 8 whole seconds back, but then behind him, Eric Smith was about 2 seconds behind him. I'm trying to see if we have any other battles in the GS class. Everyone is really, really spacing out, so they're not giving us much that's too exciting there.
No, we still have the three-way battle between Arthur Hermont and Phil Schrader and Elena Gomez that German Afanador has now joined. So he dropped back a little bit, and I'm not entirely sure why yet. German seems to really be struggling today.
Yeah, he hasn't pitted or anything that I can see, so German must have made a mistake somewhere along the line. He's usually up fighting for podiums and things like that. This might be a bogey track for him. Is there anything on the ST side, Ayrton, that any fierce battles going on over there?
Yeah, there's a very fierce battle for first, second, and third. Carl and Alex Blau have both been peeking on each other and James. Alex Blau did have a peek in the keyhole on James, but didn't quite make it stick, and Carl was just looking on the inside of Alex Blau in Madness. So now these top four cars are very close and ready to pounce at any moment.
And we missed JD Baumgartner coming up through them, so I'm sure he threw a whole wrench in their system that they didn't want. But these guys, like you said, are all very close. Whoa, Alex Blau gets a couple wheels into the dirt yet again, but he holds on to it, and Carl Williamson is under threat for that third position. Patrick Gallagher is making his stamp very early on in this series. He says, I want a podium in my first go out, and you guys are not going to stop me.
Yeah, and I'm actually surprised that James Stevenson hasn't been able to run off on his own without all these guys battling it out. He's just the gap has just been maintained for the majority of the race. He hasn't been able to pull away, even though no one has really made any pass attempts on him.
Yeah, and this isn't really known as a drafting track, so that I can't imagine that that's really coming into play, although this long straightaway, it does come into effect. Pit stops are starting to take off. I see that Dexter Castro has put his second pit stop in after repairing his damage earlier on, and then Hiro Kanaya, who is usually a backmarker in the ST class, he pitted on lap 15, and we are currently on lap 17 from what I'm seeing. So we're about 30 minutes in, so it's all starting to take off.
And we do see Dan Rash and Brian Strodbeck at the front of the GS field have now caught the back of the ST field and are trying to weave their way through traffic, and it's starting to get real busy for these guys.
This is where it's really going to get interesting. We saw it really take effect at Road Atlanta, and I'm willing to bet you this is going to give Dan some opportunities to do the same here, because it looks like he doesn't quite have the pace to be right on the tail of Dan. So anything that he's going to get is going to be trying to navigate his way and see that Dan gets caught up by an ST car that just isn't aware enough.
You're exactly right. I think Brian Strodbeck is definitely going to try and be a little more aggressive in traffic right now than Dan Rash will be, just so that he can catch up. Dan had put about a second and a half on Brian Strodbeck, and that's about where it still is right now, although I see that Brian Strodbeck has gained a couple of tenths over the last time by the start-finish line. And we see Dan Rash once again kind of getting held up in madness, and again he gets bogged through into the entrance of Thunder Valley, and that's really helped Brian Strodbeck catch up.
Yeah, that's definitely not what he wanted there, and Brian is really closed up. In fact, he's about a car length back now, so that's just the advantage that he needed. And Dan, I don't think he made a wrong move there, but Tom Eklund definitely was not doing him any favors. So just all around, everybody kind of getting in each other's way, nobody really doing much wrong. One thing that we have seen as far as ST cars and getting out of the way, it can make you not very favorable to other drivers. One guy that we've seen really get into the wars is William Randleman. In fact, he's made I believe he's made contact with a Mustang in every single race so far, has he not?
I think so, but I think at Road Atlanta, I think he managed to stay clean. So we're proud of him for that. Getting used to the mixed class aspect in the Continental Series is always a difficult proposition. So we were hoping he can do the same here, where a track where both cars want to use every inch of available real estate, and it gets a little narrow sometimes.
Yeah, we're really hoping that he'll be able to continue that trend. Absolutely. As Tim Brokaw gets out of the ways of the two GS class leaders, Brian is definitely caught back up, and I'm not sure if the draft is helping him or just his pace is picked up or what, or maybe it's just the traffic, but he's definitely holding on to the back of Dan Rash, our GS leader.
Yeah, I think this has really helped him out to get focused again and try and put some good laps and stay in. And that's an MX-5 getting very loose out of Thunder Valley. I'm not sure who that was.
That was Tim Brokaw discovering that crest that leads you into Thunder Valley is sometimes not as easy to get over at full throttle. In the MX-5s, you tend to be able to take it, and it doesn't really catch you out too much, but I'm sure you can attest, Ayrton, that you get too aggressive with it, and it will bite you.
Yeah, this track is very easy to get loose, very easy to get oversteer off the corner, and especially in a light car like the MX-5, the elevation changes are very dramatic and effective on these cars. At the moment, we're seeing Jonathan Auger in the Mustang in the GS class trying to work through traffic and has really split up this lead pack quite a bit. At the moment, he's on the tail of Carl Williamson trying to get by, and these guys have been spaced out quite a bit. He almost had an incident in the final corner with Patrick Gallagher, but it was just missed, and I think that would have caused a caution.
Yeah, I noticed that he was having a little trouble heading in China Beach, too, a little bit ago. So this just reiterates our point earlier on before the race that heading through Madness and Thunder Valley is difficult because he's just been holding behind these leaders, which is good on him because this is for the lead, and you really don't want to mess up this battle. He doesn't seem to have anybody really around to worry about at the moment. But I'm pretty sure that coming up to the keyhole and then the back straightaway are going to be his best opportunities to get by these guys.
Yeah, now Antti Tuneman has caught back on the bumper of Stefan Overgaard and Patrick Gallagher, fighting for the 4th position. Antti had that instant earlier on, and he's now up there back fighting. It's now spread out into groups with the top 3 guys and then the next 3, and then we have another battle between Chris Moran and Hein Ho Tao for 7th position.
Yeah, Patrick has got Stefan Overgaard very close behind him. He's going to have the draft coming up behind Patrick here down the back straightaway. He's closing in less than a car length now. Patrick is going defensive, so Stefan's going to have to take the outside line, as we've seen. That can sometimes work. What's it going to look like under braking? Stefan Overgaard holds on to him. They get very close side by side. Auntie is right behind them, looking to pick up the pieces if something goes on. Patrick says discretion is the better part of valor, and he gives up the ghost on that left-hander. Stefan continues to defend on the inside, though, just in case that compromises his exit. Is Patrick going to get a chance? He's not very close. Is he going to take a look heading into Thunder Valley? No, he's going to slot in the line. They're heading over that crest now, and it looks like it's going to be Stefan Overgaard who comes out ahead in this group.
And Auntie's now getting a run, looking to the inside a bit, decides to slot back in, and goes a little wide again. I think he really struggles on that left-hander right there. And I'm hearing some crashing noises. Has someone had contact?
I haven't heard anything. So we'll have to keep an eye out, see if Giancarlo can see anything going on there. But yeah, these three are fighting very fiercely right now, and currently that is for 4th, 5th, and 6th position in the ST class.
And we did lose our 6th place GS car of Russell Clayson, who got loose and spun entering turn 4, trying to overtake the 95 ST car of Ed Verras, and that's dropped Russell Clayson down to about 8th place, where he's in front of the continuing battle for 9th place of Arthur Hermont, German of Fanador, Phil Schrader, and Elena Gomez. These four just can't really seem to put any distance from them, and every time I look away, they're having a passing attempt. So I'm sure as soon as we put our cameras on them, they'll space each other out, and as soon as we go away, there'll be a passing attempt.
No doubt. But yeah, German, oh wow, German is very much on top of Arthur Hermont, it looks like. So I think he's going to want to get ahead. Like I said, I would think that he would have the pace, so it's just so unusual to see him back and battling with these guys. But you know, it just goes to show that it doesn't matter what position it's for. You really want every little one that you can get. These guys have been fighting very, very hard back here, and it doesn't matter that it's for the final places. They want to prove that they're better than someone else.
Pride is always a great motivating factor, and especially at a famous and fantastic to drive track like Mid-Ohio.
And the pit window has officially started as Arthur Chan and Hayden Hotel came in earlier, and James Stevenson in the lead has just shot into the pit lane.
Yeah, we've got about 52 minutes left to go from what I'm seeing, so it's definitely in full effect at this point, as you pointed out, Ayrton. Up at the front, Alex Balau continues to lead. As like you said, James Stevenson had pitted. Where did he come out? Is he still in the pits? Yes, James Stevenson is still currently sitting in the pits, so we'll have to keep an eye on him and see exactly where he comes out on track.
He took all 4 tires, so looking to keep his regular pace rather than trying to get farther lead in the pits. He's coming out right now. And I think he's going to slot in behind William Randleman in 14th spot.
And we do have our 4th and 5th place GS cars. Steve Brown and Andre Trago have both pulled into pit lane.
Ayrton, we haven't talked a whole lot about the tires on these MX-5s, and they do get abused just as much as these Mustangs, although probably not to maybe the same degree. Are you expecting to see a lot of guys take tires, or do you think people can take a risk and maybe get ahead by jumping people in the pits?
It's a tough choice. Mid-Ohio is a track that will really eat up a driver's tires because you're always driving a corner with a lot of speed. But it's also a track where it's quite difficult to get a nice clean pass in. So it'll all be about decision of the driver, whether they think they have the pace to keep ahead with worn tires and use that track position, or if they want to try and keep that pace and think that they won't be too well on their heated up tires.
Yeah, and I'm looking to see where Stevenson currently has jumped out in the field, because he's got his pit stop over with, and he was our leader earlier. I was getting in some information. Unfortunately, I didn't quite catch it. He came out in 13th position, from what I'm being told. So he spent, since you said he went for 4 tires, we'll have to watch to see where Alex Balau comes on that. And currently Alex is still out, so he didn't pit. He's not going to try and cover the pit stops. That's interesting, Ayrton.
Well, I'm going to jump in here. Our third place car, Eric Smith, is now in pit lane. So we're seeing it in GS class as well as in strategy calls, where Steve Brown took 4 tires and Andre Trago did not. And that allowed Andre to gain about 4 seconds on Steve Brown. But he's still behind Steve Brown, and I'm not sure that's going to pay off at the end of the race without that fresh rubber.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think he's going to rue that decision come towards the end of the race. About the only thing that could come to save him at this point, I think maybe he's banking on late yellows, which we've also seen at this track. So we've had relatively clean racing, commentators' curse notwithstanding, and I'm not sure that bet is really going to play out well for him.
And he's not the only driver to have done that so far in the GS class. Eric Smith also did not take tires. So these guys are a lot braver than I would be right now, I believe.
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked to see that a lot of people are employing this strategy. There must be something in the timing of how the pit stops play out that they see fit to that they're gaining so much more time. Maybe they're hoping that they can defend, because as we saw, things started to space out, and it's very difficult to pass, which Ayrton pointed out. So it could play out to their advantage in that sense if they think they can hold them off towards the latter stages of the race. More people are coming into pit. Jonathan Auger has pitted on lap 24. Antti Tuominen in ST class has pitted. Carl Williamson has pitted. So Carl's making a lot of good progress, as we mentioned. He started dead last even though he took pole.
And I got to jump in again. We have our second place GS car, Brian Strodbeck, as in pit lane, and he's not taking tires either.
I'm looking at Carl Williams. Actually, he came out behind James Stevenson, but James Stevenson just messed up in turn 1. So Carl now is in front of James Stevenson after the pit stop.
So that really worked out well for Carl Williamson. Stevenson's got a little bit of work to do. These two tend to be very close in pace. Whoa, and Stevenson almost has a Nicholas Bailey run him over, and Nicholas Bailey runs into the tire barrier. Ooh, Nick is not going to be happy about that. I think James, he gave him space, but he really moved over on him. I don't know. That was a bit of a naughty move in my opinion, Ayrton.
I think James was mostly unaware of, not sure where Nicholas was going. I think he was expecting him to take the inside lane for turn 2 rather than the outside. And Alex Blau is now actually coming into pits. I'm interested to see how he will be able to come out.
Yeah, we'll have to keep half an eye on Alex here. And Carl Williamson is effectively our leader at the moment since he's overtaken Stevenson. And unfortunately, Carl's got a bit of traffic. That's William Randleman, our old friend. Keep it clean, Will. We've seen you be able to do so. Is he going to let him by since he's lapped traffic? Or is this maybe perhaps for position? I'm hearing information that Dan is in. Oh, and William Randleman just got into Carl Williamson. They slap sides there, but doesn't seem to be much damage done. Carl takes off. William lost a little bit of time. This could hurt Carl. Let's see where Alex Blau is. Alex is heading out of the pit lane right now. And where's Carl? Carl's heading across the start-finish line. He's coming towards turn 1. Where is Alex? Alex is going to jump him. He is out, but he is not at speed yet. He's going to lose a little bit of time as they head towards the keyhole. How much time is he going to lose? He's got maybe about a few seconds between him and Carl. I don't think it's enough. Alex Blau has held on to the lead. So good on Alex, and Carl is probably cursing William Randleman in his car right now. That was incredibly crucial.
And we do have a change for the effective overall lead. Brian Strodbeck was able to jump Dan Rash after the pit stop sequence. Neither driver took fresh tires, but Brian had a much quicker stop of about 4 seconds, and that's given him a gap over Dan Rash.
Yeah, and currently he's overtaken James Stevenson, who's right now sitting in 3rd in the ST class. Stevenson lets him by nice and cleanly. That's two guys behaving very well. We'd like to see more of that throughout the course of this race as James goes very wide through that left-hander in madness. That's interesting. I'm not sure that's the agreed line, Ayrton.
Yeah, Patrick Gallagher just led his first lap. He's still one of the top 5 ST drivers that has not pitted. There's still quite a few drivers in the top 10 still yet to take their pits, including Elliot Huffman, Joshua Lewitz, and Chuck Johnson. But I'm sure that it will cycle through once they get through their pit stops. And I'm interested to see if Patrick, after doing his first Continental Endurance Sports Car Series race, we'll see if he knows how to do a proper pit strategy.
Yeah, it's not something a lot of MX-5ers are particularly familiar with. So endurance racing is something that is a skill you got to learn, figuring out your pit strategy. But good on Patrick for leading the lap in his very first race. He is definitely impressing us. We saw that a little bit 2 weeks ago with, or I'm sorry, that was in the Blondie series that I was thinking with another MX-5 driver, Richard Eklund. In the meantime, that is neither here nor there. Patrick is leading them around. Joshua Lutz is currently scored in second in ST class, which is interesting. I'm sorry, Leutz. I said that wrong. I apologize, Josh. I told you I would do that right from now on. And Elliot Huffman, he's someone who I had pegged as a driver to watch. Elliot Huffman is currently in third, but I believe he has not made his pit stop either, Ayrton.
Yeah, and these two are actually very close. Have been so all race. They have both shown quite some speed, and Elliot has been complaining about the grip on this track, which I found quite interesting. And he's definitely struggling on this track more than he's used to on other tracks.
Yeah, and we saw him at Mossport fighting for the win briefly. He's led laps. Elliot is no slouch. He's a fast driver. So third place is not unusual for him. Podium could maybe be in the works depending on how his strategy plays out. But if he hasn't pitted, we've seen, especially with the MX-5s, late pit stops tend to not pay off unless you get the fuel right. And that's a very risky proposition. You can run out if you call it just a little too shy. It's hard to figure that out in the heat of the battle. So we'll have to keep half an eye on him and see how he does with that. In the meantime, Alex Bilbao continues to lead Carl Williamson, currently scored 5th with Carl 6th. And Carl is closing up because that is Brian Strodbeck going by Alex. It's going to compromise his line through the keyhole. This is going to give a chance for Carl to really get back on the back bumper of Alex Bilbao.
Meanwhile, we had a great pass by Steve Brown, who over Eric Smith for effectively third position after his pit stops have been factored in, but fifth currently, where Eric Smith got balked by Elena Gomez and a whole crowd of ST cars. Steve Brown was able to out-drag him on the back straight and pass him, and Steve has now opened up a couple of seconds on Eric Smith, so the fresh rubber is working wonders right now for Steve Brown.
Very much so. Arthur Hermont and Elena Gomez, who were our back markers, are currently scored as 3rd and 5th from what I'm seeing. So those guys could be employing late strategies. Now, I believe it was German Afanador who pulled a late strategy at Barber, and he really made that work for himself. So, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these back markers are trying to play a game of get some fresh rubber at the end and start slicing through the field.
And no doubt they're hoping on a late full course yellow, which will really help them close up any gaps. But right now it's not really doing a lot for them, as we see Eric Smith really kind of closing up on Elena Gomez coming into the final carousel.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see whether or not Elena and Arthur and these guys, if they're going to fight for their position, because this is for position. They're not back markers right now. They have full right to go defensive and try and hold on to this, because it can ruin the race of someone else, yeah, but it can mean a higher position for yourself, and you want everyone that you can get.
Absolutely. Elena Gomez is absolutely within her rights to defend here. Whether or not she wants to is another matter. But she does have the position in front of Eric Smith, and it's Eric's job to get around safely.
And I noticed under braking, she was braking much earlier, which just goes to show that the pace of Smith is going to be much faster than Gomez. His car seems to be hooked up a little bit better in the braking zone there. He's got a little bit of space, so he didn't close up quite enough to make anything happen here. But he's going to want to do something soon, unless she ruins his race pace, because it is difficult to get by someone in these cars, especially in the twistier sections where she's going to wreck his lap times, most likely.
And unfortunately for Eric, they're both on the exact same rubber with the same amount of laps underneath them, and Eric's now got a few more gallons of race fuel in his car than Elena, so that's just a little bit slower on the acceleration and a little bit longer in the braking zone, and that doesn't make it any easier for him.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned that they're on the same rubber, as we see Eric get pretty close to the back end of Alina, I don't think he's going to have an opportunity. This is very hard to pass here. Yeah, he's just kind of staying patient. He takes a little bit of a look, but he stays in line. But as I was saying, since they're on the same rubber, and Elena hasn't been running the same laps as Eric, the same lap times, which I think that's going to give her a little bit of better rubber, actually. That's going to mean her tires aren't quite as hot, aren't quite as worn out.
Well, that's the hope. We don't know whether or not she's been struggling with any sort of balance, so she may have already torched off her fronts or her rears, which is always a possibility in the Mustang. It's pretty easy to do, as we see Elena go a little bit defensive before the braking zone.
Yeah, she's holding on to that inside line. Like we said, she had full right, and it's good to see her get a little bit feisty here. I want to see her fight and duke it out, show that the girls can do it just as good as the guys. In the meantime, there's about a car length between them. The draft is going to help Eric just a little bit, and you can see him start to close in now as they head towards China Beach. Is she going to go on the inside? No, she's going to give him the inside. Maybe she's going to try and hold it on the outside. It is possible to do so. No, she lets him by. So maybe she's thinking lap times here and thinking for herself, not trying to... Whoa, she gets very close to the back of Eric there through that left-hander. But maybe she's just thinking, instead of losing time trying to defend, just kind of run your laps and run your strategy.
Meanwhile, Patrick Gallagher has now hopped into the pits, and Carl Williamson managed to get around Alex Blau.
And this is going to give Joshua Leutz possibly the lead a lap. No. Oh, man, that's unfortunate for Josh. He's going to have to stay out for another lap if he wants to take the lead a lap bonus, because... Patrick had... Whoa, and Josh goes way off on turn 1, all 4 wheels off. That's very scary in these cars. But Patrick Gallagher had gone into pits, but he'd gone by the start-finish line just quick enough. I saw him as he went by that he was still ahead of Patrick. Unfortunate for Josh, but he could still yet claim that point. Well, Patrick has put in a 32-second pit stop from what I have heard. In fact, he's exiting right now. Where is he in terms of other cars? Let's see, I'm trying to figure... He's is behind...
8th place. 8th place, right in front of Hain Hotel, Arthur Chan, and Chris Moran.
And he's got Stefan Overgars quite a ways away ahead of him. So, as you said, Hang Hotel and Arthur Chan are going to want to make up time, especially Arthur Chan, who we haven't seen a whole lot of since the very first lap. In fact, the very first corner that he got bumped off. In fact, I'm trying to remember exactly who bumped him off. I can't remember.
That was Alex Blau.
That was... Oh, that's correct. I thought it was a 49 machine, but I wasn't sure if I was right, and I'd hate to besmirch such a good team.
Oh, Arthur Chan actually looking on the inside of Hain Hotel. These guys, and they have a little bit of contact. These guys have been close together all race, and I think Arthur's a little bit faster. He qualified farther up, but because of this incident, he's had to try to work through the field, kind of like Carl. He hasn't been able to put much of a stamp on the lead as much as Carl, but he's still showing some speed up there in top 10.
He had quite a bobble heading into Thunder Valley there, but now he's got Chris Moran right behind him, and Chris is trying to pick up the pieces behind these two guys as Arthur goes very wide heading into the carousel, but he collects it and keeps it on track, but just barely goes wide once again. Keeps it all on the black stuff. So Chris Moran is starting to put the pressure on, and maybe Arthur is starting to let it get to him just a little bit. You know, you said that Arthur hasn't been making a whole lot of progress up through this field here. He's currently scored in 10th place from what I'm seeing. I'm willing to bet you that he's had so many bad experiences with bad luck and getting into cars. I think he's probably trying to stay patient, trying not to make any risky moves. And Arthur is probably just trying to make, no more mess of this race than it's already been made of.
Yeah, and at the moment, we have a new leader, Joshua Lewis, has now led his first lap of this league, I think, actually ever in this series. So he's followed by Elliot Huffman, and those are the only two drivers left in the top 10 who have not made a pit stop.
Yeah, Leutz is finally making a bit of a showing here. He's been a bit of a mid-pack guy. Haven't really seen a whole lot of him. But this lead lap bonus is going to help him, and if he can stay on the lead lap, and if he can get the under 6 incidents bonus, then Josh is definitely going to see a nice little points haul for himself. Well, we're getting information that Josh Loitz is actually pitted. So this is interesting.
Oh, I remember. Earlier on, he was one of the first drivers to pit, actually. I think it was actually before the original pit window opened. So I'm not sure if he's aiming for a 2-stop strategy or if he's really into huge advantage with an early pit stop.
He's gained something of an advantage.
But he stopped on lap 4.
Yeah, he stopped on lap 4, like you said, and I remember that, but that's way too early. But he gained an advantage from the yellow because he pitted, so that's how he's managed to get up here. But the thing is he's not going to be able to make it on that fuel unless we have just a whole slew of yellows going on, and it doesn't look like it right now because everyone's playing pretty cleanly. So I'm not sure what exactly he's trying here as he comes up on what looks like lap traffic. Yeah, that's Tim Brokaw ahead of him, who is currently in 19th place, and he gets out of the way and lets Josh by. I mean, Josh is sort of here on merit, sort of not. It's very difficult to tell exactly what he's attempting with this strategy, Ayrton.
He may be trying to, because of his first pit stop, he has more fuel in the car and obviously can go longer than the other drivers. So I think he may be trying to have a shorter pit stop than the other drivers by taking less fuel in his stop, and that can probably gain him a few positions.
That's a good idea. That'd be incredibly clever of him. I had not thought of that in all my time in this series, and I don't know why I had never quite thought of that, but that could be a very valid strategy. We need to keep an eye on Josh and see if he's pulled a smart one on a lot of us here. In the meantime, effectively behind him, Carl Williamson, who's in the thick of a lot of track. In fact, Carl Williamson is being overtaken by Alex Balau. That is for 3rd and 4th position. So Alex Balau gets by after Carl had what looked like an off. I'm not exactly sure what happened to him. I just caught him going very slow.
I think he had some sort of instant with the driver of David Whammond. I think he had to slow up in order not to hit him, and it really ruined his exit of turn 1.
Well, Carl has made very good of coming from behind there, but he's not having it all his way. He's having a very difficult time with things, as I see Steve Brown overtaking Alex Balau. And Alex is sort of effectively our leader. Right now he's being scored as 3rd position, so it's a tough one to call right now. I don't think Josh has got something to try and win this one. I'm not seeing exactly how far ahead he is. I don't know if you guys could see on timing and scoring what kind of gap there is between Alex and Josh, because that could help give us a clue with 28-second stops. If he short stops it, we will probably want to see him have maybe about 30 or more seconds ahead of him to make something of this.
He's not very far ahead. If you're looking at Alex Balau on your screen, Elliot Huffman is right in the same screen as him, and Elliot Huffman is only a little bit behind Joshua Loitz. So these guys are close. Only, I would say, about maybe a 7-second gap.
Yeah, and since we've got most of the pit stop cycled through, in fact, we've got about a half hour left to go in this race. So, wow, this thing is breezed by, guys. Let's run through the top 10 of each class real quick. Kevin, what's the top 10 of the GS class look like?
Well, Brian Stradbeck is still in the lead, but Dan Rash has whittled that 2-second gap to almost 3/4 of a second last time by at the line. Dan's been running about a 1/5 to 1/4 of a second a lap faster than Brian Stradbeck. In 3rd place, Steve Brown has opened up 8 seconds in front of the 4th place car of Eric Smith, and I'm going to attribute that to that fresh rubber that he has. And then in 5th place is Andre Trago, who was helped out enormously by the battle between Elena Gomez and Eric Smith. Holding Eric Smith up, and as soon as Andre Trago caught up with Elena Gomez, she went into pit lane, so that really helped out Andre Trago as he's stalking down Eric Smith. And then in 6th place we have the 22 of Russell Playson, and 7th place we have Alexis Molina, 8th is German Afanador, 9th is Arthur Hermont, who's still in front of Phil Schrader in 10th.
Yeah, a lot of interesting strategy stuff going on in GS class there. What's the top 10 look like in ST class, Ayrton?
On the moment, we have Joshua Leutz and Elliot Huffman in first and second, but they have not pitted. The other drivers who have pitted are Alex Blau in third, Carl Williamson in fourth. Actually, as I say that, Elliot Huffman hops into the pits, but Joshua Leutz is still our leader. Then we have Chuck Johnson in fifth, James Stevenson in sixth, Stefan Overgaard in seventh, Patrick Gallagher in eighth, Hein Ho Tao in ninth, and Arthur Chan in the top 10.
So things are shaping up very interestingly in both classes as far as pit stops go. Joshua Leutz trying to pull an interesting one on us. Alex Blau is closing in on them, though, so I don't think he's really going to be able to make any sort of podium or something out of that. I believe our director would like to take a really brief break. We're going to hop back soon because I can see some battles possibly starting to take shape in ST side. So we'll see you on the other side after a brief break. We are back with the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. We are a little over a half hour into this race, so it's towards the end. And we had a battle between the leaders, between Brian Strodbeck and Dan Rash. And Dan Rash is off, is he? Or no, that was Nicholas Bailey, I think. Where did Dan Rash go?
Dan just disappeared.
It looks like the internet of Dan Rash may have gone out, and right when he was starting to threaten Brian Strodbeck for the lead, Brian was actually having to go defensive. That is, oh man, so we were about to get a fierce battle going on between these two for the third time this season, and it just completely disappeared.
And unfortunately, Dan Rash has actually been booted out of the session. He's lost his internet. Oh, that's just terrible. He was making his move on to Brian Strodbeck, had forced Brian to go defensive into madness, and as we came back, they go into Thunder Valley, and Dan Rash disappears. That's terrible.
And he's obviously been the class of the field for all of this season. Dan Rash is one of the fastest drivers around here, and you'd think he'd have just nothing but wins so far, but it seems like he can't get it together on that. Nicholas Bailey, on the other hand, who I saw had gone off, is currently dead last of the Mustangs. He's actually exiting out, so I think he's had enough of this race. I saw him go off a little bit earlier. But in the meantime, Brian Strodbeck, he's got 26 seconds back to Steve Brown in second place. If he keeps it together, and barring any yellows, he could just run away with this one.
Yeah, there's only we only have about 22 minutes left, I think, or 26 minutes left in the race. So, yeah, if as long as he keeps a lap gap between him and Steve Brown, he'll be able to walk this home. So, no need to push for himself. That's one way to win. I think we like to when your internet goes out, we like to think of that as an engine failure or just another big mechanical issue. And even in professional racing in real life, it's not the most entertaining way to win a race, but you take them how you get them.
Yeah, absolutely. A win is a win, regardless. And I'm noticing as I'm looking down the leaderboard in the GS class, and I was talking about Andre Trago, expecting him to be a little higher up. Guess who is completing the podium currently?
It is Andre Trago. We lost Eric Smith as well, and I don't know what happened. He somehow disappeared as well. So, kind of starting to wonder if we had some sort of mysterious internet gremlins hit both Eric Smith and Dan Rash.
Yeah, they're tearing apart a few people's modems, it sounds like. So Andre's inherited quite a nice little position there, and he's got a little bit ways back to Russell Clayson. So he also could be sitting very pretty. In the meantime, Russell's got some work to do if he hopes to get on the podium this year. Actually, I think he's been on the podium once this year, has he not?
I think he did, but I can't recall exactly off the top of my head, as I can confirm that Eric Smith also just kind of vanished into thin air, unfortunately.
Especially after such a good race for him. He was really staying out of trouble. And I believe he was in 4th place before that, was he not? Because he was battling with Steve Brown.
Yeah, he was in 4th, and he had Andre Trago just trying to come up. And oh no, I'm sorry, Eric Smith actually he had to quit out for some reason. He went into pit lane before he had to exit. So we're not sure what happened there. We're sorry to lose Eric Smith as well.
Could have been a personal emergency of some sort. That does happen with these guys being in their living rooms and racing from there in real life. Steve Brown, in the meantime, I'm betting he's pretty happy to have inherited this. Don't want to curse him like we do Arthur Chan at times, but Steve is finally having something of a decent race, it looks like.
Yeah, he's done well. He's been carrying good speed. I think the strategy call of taking fresh rubber really helped him out. He now has about an 11-second lead over the third-place car, Andre Trago. So Steve is having a good run back to his championship-winning form of last season.
Well, meanwhile, over the ST class, things seem to be rather spaced out. I'm trying to find a little bit of a battle here, Ayrton. And I see that Hang Hotel and Arthur Chan have swapped places somewhere recently within the last lap. So looks like they've got a battle going on.
Yeah, I'm looking for them right now. Yeah, those guys are really close, and right behind them is Chris Moran and Joshua Leutz fighting for position. And these guys, this is the mid-pack group, just very close in speed. And Joshua Leutz, I think, actually got an advantage in that pit strategy. He jumped Chris Moran in the pits. I remember him behind earlier in the race. So I think even though we were surprised with his strategy, it's worked out quite a bit. And he's catching up to Arthur Chan in Ottawa, and he's on fresher tires as well. So that is giving him an advantage as well in this later stages of this race.
Yeah, in the meantime, they've got Alina Gomez to deal with, too, who is trying to get past what looks like Hang Hotel in the 49 Motorsports machine, but she backs out of it probably wise. Don't really want to make a dive this late in the race. Just got to be patient, especially with this long back straightaway. Just lets her breeze on by now. So she is clear of those guys, and I bet they're glad to have her out of their hair. In the meantime, Leutz is being passed by Phil Schroeder, who's also coming up, so he's going to probably tangle with them as they get close to madness here.
And in the meantime, in the lead, I'm impressed with Alex Blau's pace. He has pulled quite a gap from Carl Williamson, pretty much running half a second quicker each lap. And it's about a 3-4 second lead at the moment, and he's looking very good in the lead of this race.
Yeah, Alex didn't have that great of showings, although he was always there or thereabouts earlier on in the season. And definitely was qualifying up there, so we knew he had the pace. I think it's safe to say, with him being a rookie, that he is starting to acclimate to the series, and he's starting to establish himself as an incredibly key player, as just a driver that these guys need to fear, because he's getting the strategy, he's getting the pace, and he's going to be a triple threat here soon once he starts getting more and more wins under his belt.
Yeah, and I think this is a great continuancy of his previous win at Road Atlanta, where he managed to pass James Stevenson, who is having a very disappointing run. He is in third, which is respectable, but I expected him to be able to keep up or even catch up to Carl and Alex in the lead, and he's just been dropping back. He's just not running those quick laps like he was in the beginning of the race.
Yeah, but you know, you have to give James a little bit of credit because you know, one thing that he learned from last season, because he ran into so much trouble and he lost by something like 3 or 4 points in the end, that consistency is so important in this championship. So a podium, I don't think he's going to be disappointed with that. I think he's kind of learning that, you know, when you don't have it, there's no need to try and screw yourself up. I wonder if maybe he's trying to keep the car on the black stuff and get those clean race points.
Meanwhile, we have a side-by-side battle of Hein Ho Tao and Arthur Chan. Arthur Chan just swept over the nose of Hein Ho Tao, and that has allowed Joshua Loitz and Chris Rand to get right on their bumper. Those guys are dealing with the lap traffic of Phil Schroeder, who really bunched those guys up and slowed them down quite a bit. And these guys have been tangling a lot, and I think this is a good battle to watch for quite a bit.
Yeah, this is a 4-car battle for what is 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, so these guys are really going at it, and those positions count. As someone who finished in 6th quite regularly, I can tell you that they're gonna claw and scratch for that. As I watch Hang Ho Tao gets a much better exit out of that first corner than Arthur Chan. In fact, Arthur is defenseless as Hang just goes right on past him even before the braking zone. Arthur goes a little bit wide, in fact, and they've got what looks like lap traffic in front of them. Christopher Thompson is trying to get out of the way as they go through. That's going to give a bit of a draft to the cars behind them as Arthur Chan goes by. In fact, Arthur is in the draft of Hang Ho Tao right now, coming down the back straight. He closes up very fast now. Is he going to be able to look at the inside? Yes, he takes the inside line. Hang Ho's going to have to defend around the outside. In fact, he does quite well, and they come together. Arthur goes sideways. Now Joshua Loitz runs into him. They get going again. That sends Christopher Thompson off to avoid them in the grass. He's going to enter back on. Is he going to run into Josh? No, he stays out of it. But Arthur Chan got a little too aggressive there. He lost control and got a little bit more damage, it looked like, Ayrton.
And that damage is definitely going to hurt those two drivers. Definitely front damage to the MX-5, hurts top speed, and the hit to the side on Arthur could definitely cause some steering issues. So those drivers are probably going to drop in pace by quite a bit and allow Elliot Huffman, who was a little behind this battle, to catch back onto them.
Well, in the meantime, I'm hearing we've got something of a battle going on between German Afanador and Arthur Hermont, which is for 6th and 7th, and the Mustangs. Kevin?
Yeah, German and Arthur are still having a pretty good battle going on. They've been racing each other for, I think, most of the race now. It's got to be at least 30, maybe 45 minutes. And I think what we see now is the largest gap on track between these two drivers, as they just can't seem to really get separated from each other. And we're going to see probably German get slowed down by the ST cars in front of them. That's Stefan Overgaard directly in front of them. And this is, once again, good mixed class racing.
Yeah, and they're coming up on some more MX-5, so this is going to come into play here, and it looks like that's Stefan Overgaard and Tim Brokaw, which I believe is for, that's not for position between those two, so they're not going to have to worry about those guys dueling it out, but it definitely could create a pick situation that could allow Arthur to catch up.
Yeah, I think he's hoping for that. This is, I think, the best run we've seen from Arthur so far. He's really showing a little bit of at least consistent speed in this race, so well done so far.
Yeah, and you know, I think you have to remember that Arthur hasn't had the best of luck. In fact, he's closing up right now on German as they head through the carousel. Back at Barber, he just ran into an unfortunate situation when I believe it was Andre Trago who got off track and spun back into him. That's not something you can do much about other than just be very, very aware and get off of it very quick. So, yeah, I mean, Arthur, I think, can be there in the upper midfield in most races. It's just a matter of staying out of trouble.
And as we see German going in quite deep on the ST cars there into the keyhole, and glad to see that at least that first part worked out okay.
Yeah, he's got to be careful. We're only about 15 minutes left in this race, so there's not a whole lot of time to just keep your nose clean and keep from getting involved in an accident. You don't want to bin it at the very end because there's no time for recovery.
And as we say that, German Affanador goes off into China Beach, and he comes on back onto the track, and Arthur Hermant, they bump. Arthur Hermant has taken the position.
Just a slight little kiss to his rear bumper, but good on Arthur for staying out of trouble there. That could have gone way worse. And, commentators curse, but German is looking to take the spot back already. He's got the inside heading into Thunder Valley. Is he going to be able to hold on to it? Arthur doesn't want to give up yet. They slide just a little bit, but there's no contact. And German's got the better exit, so he takes off.
And Arthur is suddenly very much slower. I wonder if he's got some damage to his right rear wheel from that contact.
It's very possible. These cars are very susceptible to that. If you hit them just the right way, your suspension is all screwy. And, in fact, that's a good call. There he goes right into the pits. Unfortunate for Arthur.
That's terrible luck. Once again, through no fault of his own, German made a mistake going off track. And when he came back on, he and Arthur touched. That's tough luck again.
Yeah, I'd almost say that he has grounds for protest there, because that was a pretty unsafe re-entry from German. I mean, it is difficult to get the car slowed down if you go off on China Beach, but he definitely shouldn't have re-entered so dramatically.
Right, so I guess we'll let the marshals sort that one out. I'm glad I'm not a marshal in this case.
Yeah, they have a hefty job under them, and Arthur is taken off there in that black machine. So, gosh, I feel bad, because I feel like we're partially responsible with that commentator's curse. He was doing so good, and then we started talking to him, and suddenly it all went out the window.
And I do want to point out, you may have seen on track in some of the ST battles that Dan Rash was able to rejoin, but he's one lap down and only a little ways up track from Brian Strodbeck putting him 2 laps down. So we do have him back, and he's clearly trying to just run for points at this moment.
Yeah, and every point counts, even though we have those drop weeks. You never know when you're going to get a 0 and whatnot. So you have to fight for every little thing. I hate when drivers just give up and don't come back and don't worry about where they finish, because to me, a real driver with a racer's instinct is gonna fight down to the very final lap.
I agree with you 100%, but the bit of the fighting we see at the front of the GS field has pretty much stopped, with Brian Strodbeck almost 30 seconds in front of Steve Brown in second place, who has another 15 seconds in front of Andre Trago. So I think these guys are just to conserve their positions for the last few minutes.
Now, I don't know if we missed something. I see that J.D. Baumgartner is a lap down and currently scored in 10th place. He's usually up at the sharp end of the field. Did he have a mistake somewhere along the line? Can you tell us anything about that, Kevin?
Well, I know he did come in for a second pit stop and took, I believe, tires, so I don't know what caused that. He's just not had a good day so far, and I think this is going to be a drop week for him.
Undoubtedly. It's also, I'm hearing from behind the scenes that he's been saying that he struggles with this track, so this could be his bogey course. I think you're right, though, that this is going to be a drop week for him compared to the rest of his races. On the ST side, Ayrton, is there any interesting battles that you've been watching going on?
Yeah, the battle for 8th place has been heating up quite a lot, with Elliot Huffman, Arthur Chan, Joshua Leutz, and Antti Tuneman has now become a part of it. And Antti Tuneman, very interesting. He was fighting for the lead at the beginning of the race, and after a early incident, he dropped down to 6th, and ever since then he just has fallen back. So these guys are fighting really hard. They're a lot of 2-wide action. Arthur and Joshua, they don't seem to be struggling too much with their damage from their troubles earlier on.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that they probably want to get away from one another, though. Currently ahead of them is Elliot Huffman, so it's all to fight for with 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th here. In fact, they're closing quite a bit on Elliot, so there's a truly train forming right now. They're coming down the start-finish straight, and Elliot's going to be vulnerable to the draft if Arthur can hold on until after the keyhole.
Yeah, and these MX-5s are very, the draft is very helpful. And, it provides a lot of passage. Joshua actually gets very loose on the exit of turn 1. The bump that separates the track from the pit lane, a lot of drivers take that very...
Oh,
actually,
an accident. I'm sorry to interrupt. Antti Tuominen just ran into Joshua Loitz. So that was a pass gone awry. I watched that thing happen right in front of my eyes.
it looks like Andy just went a little bit too hot while trying to make a pass attempt after Joshua's bad exit, and that caused both of them to have a lot of damage, and now Joshua has had 2 hits onto his right side of his car, and I'm sure that's definitely not helping him at the moment.
Yeah, Josh really needs to try and bring this thing home before more stuff happens to him. This has all been within like the last half hour of the race, so that poor guy is not having a good time being a closer for his team. So we've got about 10 minutes left to go. Kevin, what's the top 10 of the GS class looking like at the moment?
Well, the order at the front is still the same. Brian Strodbeck leads 30 seconds over in front of Steve Brown. Andre Triego is the 3rd position. Russell Clayson in 4th. Alexis Molina in 5th. And then in 6th, we have German Afanador, who's been struggling. He once again went off into China Beach, and that allowed Elena Gomez in 7th place to catch up to him. And she's been a little bit faster than him in the last couple of laps. And I'm kind of wondering if she's got something to make him move on here, because I think German might not have any good rubber on the front of his car.
Yeah, everyone keeps calling Elena our Danica, but if you ask me, she is our Simona de Silvestro. She is our Iron Maiden, because she is a gutsy driver, and I think she's going to want this spot, like you said.
And we've seen her get a little bit quicker each race that she's been in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. I think as she gets more and more comfortable with this series, we're going to see her move, fighting for top 5s more and more often. So I think she wants the 6th place, and I bet she's going to do everything she can to get it.
Well, on the ST side, Alex, I'm sorry, I was looking at the timing sheets. It's Alex Bilal. Ayrton, you're our co-commentator. Ayrton, what's it look like the top 10?
Well, as you said, Alex Bilal in 1st place and has pulled an extreme gap on Carl Williamson. He's just been running fast lap after fast lap, pretty much almost qualifying pace. So, and that Carl's in 2nd. James Stevenson just as far back in 3rd, who's actually catching Carl a little bit, but I don't think he has enough time. Only about 7 minutes left of this race. But behind him, Stefan Overgaard. And then in 5th place is Patrick Gallagher, who's had a really good run. And then 6th is Hein Ho Tao, followed closely by Chris Moran. And then we have our 8th place battle of Arthur Chan, Elliot Huffman, and then Joshua Loitz and Antti Tuominen have followed back a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned Patrick having done a pretty good job, and I have to concur. A top 5 in your first go is nothing to scoff at. If he can hold on to that, because we've only got about 7 minutes left to go, that's going to be a nice little feather in his cap. I think from here on out, it's just going to be him understanding how the strategy works and just getting used to these long distances. Well, since we've run through the top 10 on both sides, let's find ourselves a nice little battle in one of these classes. I know ST tends to have been giving us something more interesting. Joshua Loitz was pretty close, as well as Arthur Chan and all those guys. Let's actually, Arthur Chan and Elliot Huffman are very close still, which I see is the battle for 8th and 9th currently.
Yeah, these guys have been swapping back and forth all race long. I think Arthur's small damage hasn't hurt him that much. He still has quite a bit of pace and very consistent at the moment. I don't think these guys have gotten into too much trouble besides that first lap incident. They did lose contact to Chris Moran and Hein Ho Tao in front when they were all 4 battling for 6th place. Hein Ho Tao, I must say, is having a great run. He normally struggles to get a good run in the top 10, but this is a really good showing for him, and it may be an imitation of his 6th place finish at Barber as well.
Yeah, that little 49 Motorsports machine has been slowly and quietly working his way through, and that's a great way to make an impression in the series. Is just kind of sneak in through the back door and start racking up those points. And Hang is another guy that kind of just he tends to catch the bad end of the stick a lot. I've seen him get into some scuffles that were not his fault at all. And I think it's good to see him start to try and make something of his pace, because he is a pretty swift driver, if I might say.
Yeah, and him and Chris have been battling all race long from start to finish. Chris has dropped back a little bit now, but I think he's pushing hard to try to get back up into that 6th place position. And these guys have been really at it and very equal in pace as well.
Well, checking out to see if there's any other interesting battles that we can find around here, and nothing really. Actually, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Arthur and Elliott side by side for 3 corners straight. They did have a slight little bit of netcode contact, and man, they're door to door right now. Arthur's the inside line, and now they go back to single file, but Elliott a very strong attack in those past corners.
Yeah, as soon as I started talking about finding something, I saw them out of the corner of my eye, and I figured this is the one to go to. Elliott's going to really want this spot. Now, Elliott, we saw him grab a podium position at Mossport early on in the season, so I kind of pegged this guy as maybe someone that's going to be a bit of a dark horse and be able to sneak in and get himself good chunks of points here and there. But he's currently scored in 9th place. And I'm not sure if he ran into trouble. We haven't seen a whole lot of him. We saw him at Barber up top, but he had a few spins that put him farther down. So, oh, and there's a car off. Who is that? That was Tim Brokaw, who went off at turn 1. He's currently sitting on the inside of turn 1, the exit, so he's getting the car going. I don't think that should be a yellow at all.
Yeah, and we're coming to the last few minutes of this race. White flag should be coming out in just a few laps now.
Sounds like Stefan Morian's running into some trouble as well. I'm trying to bring him up, see what's going on with him. He went off at the same corner. That he did exactly what I've been saying. Wow, he had a wild ride, it looks like, heading down that second straightaway. But besides a slap to the wall, he got away with it, so he's going to go on to try and finish this race. Hopefully he's not too damaged. On GS side, Kevin, have you seen anything interesting happening as far as battles over there?
Well, we still have German Afanador and Elena Gomez duking it out for 6th place. German, I think, is definitely struggling with balance issues. He's on the brakes earlier than Elena and a lot longer, but behind them is Dan Rash, who is the absolute fastest car on track right now. He's a lap down from them, so I don't know if he's going to try and make a move and get a lap back on these guys or not, but he may interfere with this battle that's been brewing for several laps.
Dan's a pretty patient guy and pretty considerate on the track. I can't see him trying to rush through, especially since there's not much for him to gain. However, they are coming up on James Stevenson, who I believe is in play for a podium. I don't think he's under threat, so he could probably let them through pretty quickly. And in fact, they're going through madness right now, so there's not really much place for him to stop and let them through. In fact, they won't really gain or lose anything by being behind him. Is he going to pull over in Thunder Valley? Elena Gomez is coming up behind him currently, and I see James pulling over a little bit to the right. In fact, he gains on German Afanador. He still doesn't let them by, it looks like. But Elena's going to look to the inside anyways, and she gets through cleanly. Is she going to be able to keep it on the track? Yes, good move by all of them. Everyone is showing some decent patience and some good car control there.
Yeah, I'm seeing German Afanador definitely struggling with balance right now. He got very loose on the entrance of Thunder Valley, and he went really deep into the carousel right there both times. I think he's a little lucky to stay on track right now, so he really needs to make sure he keeps it on track.
Wide.
He's very wide into 1.
Oh, and this is going to give Elena Gomez the chance that she's been wanting. She's on the outside, though. It's still possible to do. You said she's been braking later. Let's see if she's going to be able to take advantage of that. They break about the same time, but this is going to give her the cutback. In fact, she does it so nice and cleanly. That's great stuff. She's going a little bit wide. Oh, and she pushes him off the track. Boy, she has no mind at all. She does not mind at all trying to claim her position. So really, really aggressive driving, but good stuff from Elena Gomez.
And we do see German kind of trying to make a move back on Elena into turn 5, but I think Elena might have this one, and I don't think German's got enough for her right now.
Do you know if either Elena or German had pitted for tires when they went through pit stops, or what happened with them?
Elena, I did not see if she got tires with her stop, and the same with German. They both had pit stops right on the 24-second mark, so whatever they did the same.
Yeah, Elena did take tires. I just checked.
All right, well, so that could be what's giving her a bit of an advantage. They do have Dan Rash behind them, as we mentioned. He's not really doing anything, though. He definitely has the pace to be ahead of these guys. He's moving, he's hustling, but he's just kind of holding position. I think he sees that this is for position between those two, so probably knows that he's got to stay out of their way. German has not given up quite yet. In fact, Elena goes a little bit wide into turn 1, and so that's going to make her a little bit vulnerable. German's got a little bit of a run, but he's not going to be close enough to do anything. In fact, she goes defensive, but not defensive enough. As German takes a look, he's going to run into her. He tips her. They both go sideways. Are they going to be able to get it going? Is there much damage between the two? Elena gets the car going first. Now German. So positions were as they were. They didn't lose anything, but man, that was a sloppy pass attempt from German Afanador.
That was pretty unfortunate. We knew that German was a little bad under braking right now with the balance he was struggling with, and I think he just tried to outbrake himself way too much.
In the meantime, I'm seeing a checkered flag. I don't know if that's correct. We might have possibly missed the finish there. See if we can get confirmation. Brian Strodbeck could have possibly already won this one. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of drivers talking like the race is over. So I believe Brian Strodbeck has closed this one up. Steve Brown has taken second place, and Andre Trago has finished off the podium in the GS class. Ayrton, what did the ST class finish like, or have they finished?
Yeah, they have finished. Alex Blau came home with his second win in a row. Fantastic run by Alex, and definitely used the pit strategy to his advantage. Carl Williamson came from the back of the grid to second place finish, and then James, who started on pole, finished in third place.
All right, well, we gave you the podiums, but real quick before we go to the break, Kevin, could you take us down the finishing order on GS class?
Well, Brian Strodbeck was able to take it home with the lead. In second place was Steve Brown, and third, Andre Trago. Fourth was Russell Clayson, and the final fifth place was Alexis Molina.
Meanwhile, behind Alexis in sixth place is, or I'm sorry, you already called sixth place. Or no, you did not. You called Alexis Molina. Sixth place is, in fact, Elena Gomez. Seventh is German Afanador. Eighth is Phil Schroeder. Ninth is J.D. Baumgartner. And then 10th is Arthur Hermont. Behind them, further down the field, is Dan Rash, who had some internet problems, and he took home 11th place. Jonathan Auger was 2 laps down in 12th. Eric Smith had to exit the race, and he finished in 13th. Nicholas Bailey gave up the ghost after going off multiple times, finished 14th, and Fred Masters scored in 15th, I believe, did not start. Ayrton, what's the finishing order look like in ST class?
Well, we have Alex Blau in first, Carl Williamson in second, James Stevenson in third, and then we have Stefan Overgaard in fourth, Patrick Gallagher, his first race, in fifth, very good finish. Chris Moran, who actually made a last turn pass on Hein Ho Tao for sixth place, so Hein Ho Tao finishes seventh. Arthur Chan finishes eighth, and Elliot Huffman finishes ninth. Joshua Leutz finishes in the last top 10 position.
Behind Josh in 11th is Stefan Moriane, who is, before this race, he was scored in third in the championship, so that's not going to help his position this time. Behind him, Chuck Johnson is in 12th. Then 13th is Matthew Reinhold. 14th is our own Richard Losper from GSRC. Then 15th is William R. Randleman. Ed Voris brings out the 16th position. Behind him is David Wammond in 17th. Stephen Asbury is 18th. Tom Eckline is in 19th. Tim Brokaw is in 20th. 21st is Christopher Thompson. 22nd is Antti Tuominen. 23rd is Hiro Kanaya. 24th, 6 laps down, is Dexter Castro, and Michael Hatton, who I believe also did not start, is scored in 25th. We're going to go to a quick break, and then we'll come back with interviews after this race at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. This was a good race today in the CESCS. We've got our third place finisher in GS class here with us, Andre Trago. Andre, congratulations, first podium this season.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Yeah, that was worked out better than I had expected. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, granted, you had a bit of help because a few cars ahead of you ran into some trouble, it sounds like. We saw, we talked a little bit beforehand about how attrition was going to play possibly into some people's hands. Did you try and stay out of trouble? Were you pretty aggressive with your passes? What was your race like in terms of that?
I did try and stay out of trouble. There were a few times where I just couldn't let the the monkey on my back get off of my shoulder, and I just wound up going for some stuff, and it seemed to work out okay. But yeah, for the most part, I was pretty calm. Tried to keep it low key.
Well done, Andre. You seem to have a pretty good battle with Russell Clayson. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, that was pretty fun. He just got loose on one of the corners earlier on, and I gave me an opportunity to get around him, and he didn't crowd back over, so that was real nice of him. But after that mishap, I don't know if he cooked his tires or whatever, but he started falling back a little bit, so that we didn't really meet up again. But yeah, that I saw the opportunity there, and I was definitely going to jump for it. But congrats to him for coming in fourth. That's also not bad.
All right. Well, well done on your first podium of the season. That was a well-earned run.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Any sponsors or shout-outs you'd like to make?
Matco Tools, Tim Brokaw for doing the awesome paint job on the Matco Tools Mustang I'm running, and also my pit crew for helping me figure out the times with the math. So that I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, again, congratulations, and I believe we're going to drag in Steve Brown next.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we've got Steve Brown in here. Steve, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Steve, this is a much better result than previous ones this season, it seems like. Second place on the podium, not quite the top step, but it looks like you're back to form.
Yeah, the race felt good. Felt good at the beginning. It seemed like I had better pace than Russell. He caught me a couple of times. He almost got around me once, and we made contact just before the carousel. But after that, I kind of pulled away, and then it seemed like I was gaining on Eric. I know he was having trouble with his setup during practice and whatnot, so I don't know if he overheated his tires or what happened there, but he ended up gapping me a bit on the pit stop. I don't think he took tires, so he was even slower coming out, and I was able to get past him in traffic, and getting by Elena Gomez was a little difficult at coming out of the pits there, but we eventually got around there, gapped Eric even more. He got stuck behind her, and just kept gapping Andre, and Dan, for whatever reason, lost connection and got second place on the podium.
Steve, well done on the second place position. Good to see you back in the form there. You were one of the few Mustangs to take tires in your pit stop. Was that the plan all along, or were you just kind of suspicious that everybody else was going to stay on the same rubber?
Well, I knew 2 tires would be no problem with the amount of fuel I needed to take, and 4 was only going to be a second or 2 longer than the gas, so you might as well just take the other 2. It's an advantage you have on the track. I'll gain those extra couple of seconds in a couple of laps with 4 fresh sneakers.
Well, again, well done on the second place. We're glad to see you back up there. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, thanks to Turn 2 Motorsports and my teammates Arthur, Chris, and David Waters, who couldn't be here, and my sponsors Petrel Data Systems and SoloStorm.
Good stuff. All right, well, that's our GS podium. Unfortunately, Brian Strodbeck could not join us today, so we'll try and get him someday later. In the meantime, before we hop over to ST, let's drag Dan Rash into here because he was a very major player and had some unfortunate results. Dan, can you hear us?
Yep, loud and clear, Joe.
Well, Dan, we were watching and getting ready for a very fierce battle between you and Brian Strodbeck, and it looks like your internet gave out on you.
Oh no, the internet was doing fine. I overclocked my CPU a little bit too far and was running on the ragged edge, and I paid the price. Got a blue screen while I was racing. Kind of like in the British Touring Car Championship when they run the maximum amount of camber so they can get the most grip, but if they take it just a little bit too far, they blow a tire. That's kind of like what I did.
Absolutely. Kevin, questions for Dan?
Dan, that was a fantastic run you were having there, and I think I'm almost as disappointed as you were from being robbed of watching what looked like it was going to be a fantastic battle for first place. Did you think you had enough to get the pass done on Brian Strodbeck if it was going to be there?
Yeah, I think I had a good chance of it. I mean, I was gaining on him little by little every lap, a few tenths here and there, and it was interesting. It looks like he took a gallon less at the pit stops than me. I'll have to watch the broadcast and see. Obviously, I didn't get to see part of it, but I'm curious to see how much fuel saving he had to do, or if everything worked out right. Looking at my fuel calculations, it looks like we were going to be right on the line between taking as much as I did and taking 1 gallon less. But with all the traffic, that you end up inevitably slowing up in a couple corners, and that saves some fuel since we're on a timed race and not a lapped race. I would imagine that maybe my calculations need to take into account those lift ups. But it was really fun. We had a good battle, and I paid the price. But you're not driving on the limit if you don't exceed it from time to time, right?
Indeed, and you did answer my follow-up question, which was your pit stop had been almost 4 seconds slower, than Brian Strodbeck's had been. So I was curious what had happened. So I guess your fuel calculations just maybe weren't quite as accurate as his today.
Oh, was it 4 seconds? That must be about 2 gallons he took then. I was even more than I was expecting. I thought he was about maybe, from what the calculations I've done, it fills at about 2.3 seconds a gallon. So I had assumed he took just 1 gallon less, but if it was 2, that was pretty darn impressive. I'll have to chat with him after the race and see what he did to make it that far.
Well, it was a great run until your misfortune. So thanks for that. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank my main sponsor, Freedom Main Radio. Had a great Mustang today. I couldn't ask for a better setup. It was running amazingly. I just pushed a little too hard, but in the hardware sense.
All right. Well, thanks much, Dan.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Well, that was our GS side of things. In the meantime, we do have James Stevenson, but I'm not seeing too many other ST guys from our podium. So we're going to just talk to James, who is our third place finisher. James, can you hear us?
Sure can, fellas.
James, third is not the position we're accustomed to seeing you in. Was this a bit of a bogey track for you?
To be honest, I hadn't had a chance to do any practice leading up to today, so the plan for today was just to go in and get low incidents and get bonus points and see what position I ended up with. Third's really a good result, considering.
Yeah, I had wondered if you were trying to play it safe and keep that consistency up, because it certainly, the inconsistency didn't help you in last championship. We saw a lot of cars tangling and a lot of attrition going on out there. Did you have any trouble with any of the battles that went on with the ST class cars?
No, to be honest, they were all pretty fair. I mean, I had a massive train behind me for the whole first stint, and then after that I was just by myself, so there wasn't really any dramas with anybody.
We saw a few guys going a little late on the pit stops, especially in the ST class, and we've seen it work in the GS class. Do you feel like late pit stops or early pit stops are the call of the day as far as ST goes, or is it a bit of a toss-up?
Generally, it's as early as you can get in so you don't get caught out by a caution. It doesn't really make a whole lot of difference with your tyres or your fuel, whether you go early or late.
Yeah, and that's, from my experience, that seems to be the way to go, which is why it kind of surprised me that we've been seeing some guys try to employ this. Well, you've got, let's see, 3 podiums so far this season, is that correct?
I believe it's 4.
4 podiums? I'm sorry. So you're 4 for 5, and I believe, let's see, actually you've been at all 5 races, have you not?
No, I missed Barber, so I've only done
that's
4
good.
races.
So 4 out of 4 for you, so not too bad, I'd say. Next track up is Watkins Glen. Are you looking forward to that?
Well, I've done okay there in the last couple of times we've been there, so it should be another effort for a podium, but we'll see how we go when we get there.
Absolutely. Are there any sponsors or shout-outs you'd like to make?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to Castrol for their sponsorship, and thanks to my teammate Stefan, who got his top 4 today. Richard and Stephen Asbury, they were a little bit back from where they wanted to be, but they still did a good effort.
Yes, good stuff from the whole team. And we're always cheering on Richard because we're a little biased up here. But again, congratulations and thanks for talking to us.
Thanks for having me in, guys.
Well, guys, it has been an interesting one, I'd have to say. I think the attrition came into play, like some of the drivers were saying. Ayrton, what are your thoughts on how this thing wound up?
Well, I think ST-wise, because that was mostly what I was watching, Alex Blau's pit strategy definitely was the thing that got him the win. He definitely had the speed, managing to pull a gap away from Carl and James, but I think pit strategy was a huge difference in finishing order for this race, even with some of the guys lower down in the grids, including Joshua Lautz, who finished in 10th. So it was a really good race. I think the battle at the beginning was very intense, and there was the battles all throughout the whole race in the top 10. So it was a great race.
Well, it was a great battle in GS, and unfortunate for Dan Rash, but Brian Strodbeck drove well to take the overall win home. And glad to see some of our mid-pack runners that were used to finishing up a little higher. They finally got around to getting back up on the podium. Both Steve Brown and Andre Trego had fantastic runs, and good, consistent racing throughout the field in the GS class.
Yeah, although we did see a few failed attempts, we see some people will probably have to have a few words with one another after the race. So we'll keep an eye on that and keep you guys updated on the stories that are going on there. Well, as we're wrapping up, we just want to thank a few people, especially Safecraft Racing. They make real-world safety gear for motorsports, and just can't thank them enough for doing that, because saving lives is so crucial in racing. There's so many people that we'd hate to lose in that sport. We want to thank Wes Eric, who is the organizer of the CESES. He puts a lot of thankless hours into this thing. Wes, you do good stuff, and this is a fantastic league. It's probably my favorite around. We have to thank our software and hardware, iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, and Audio Technica, as well as Aver Media. I want to thank all the team here that help us broadcast, everyone in the booth and everyone behind the scenes. You can also check us out on our website at www.globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on Twitter at GSRChannel. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Global Sim Racing Channel. We want to thank Eric Ekholm, who does a lot of our music. You can find it not only here on GSRC, but in TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like it, you can tell him where you heard it at eric@ekholm.com. Also, thanks to Dexter Britton. Dexter provides us with our recognizable broadcast song and has a lot of great music in general with NASA, TED Talks, and McLaren. Listen or buy his music at dexterbritton.co.uk. Next race is on April 13th. It's at Watkins Glen International Raceway. That'll be 9 p.m. GMT and 5 p.m. Eastern. That is, again, right here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Our next broadcast, however, will be on April 6th. That is with the Blondies MX5 World Tour taking place at Okayama. That'll be at 6:15 p.m. GMT or 2:15 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, glad you could join us. Race hard, race clean, and I'll see you on the track.